Hello, BeholdBeGold friends, family, community. We are so happy to have you here. Excited because we are going to be interviewing one of our awesome friends, childhood cancer survivor friends, Ashley Brooks. She wrote this amazing, beautiful book for all ages, really. If you're a childhood cancer patient undergoing treatment, if you are a survivor, if you are a parent or a caregiver of a childhood cancer fighter. For those people who didn't really get to know you last time, tell us a little bit about you and how are things going? Update us.
Yeah, so my name's Ashley Brooks. I was diagnosed with liver cancer at the age of 2. I had my last procedure when I was 5 years old, and I was considered cured when I was 11 years old after all the anxiety and everything. After surviving cancer, I got my first degree in biology at Roosevelt University in Chicago, and then I also recently got my nursing degree in 2022.
Ooh.
So I worked in med-surg for a little bit, but now I'm actually an endoscopy nurse. So I work with colon cancer screenings, endoscopy screenings, ERCPs, and a lot of like gastrointestinal cancers as well. So recently I just moved to Virginia. So yeah, that's where my life has been right now.
That's such a great update, Ashley. And look, it sounds like just from we kind of been learning about you along the way, it sounds like your journey with childhood cancer really kind of impacted your career life. You know a lot about the hospital at such a young age, and you kind of want to give back to the community. Today, we're introducing Ashley's second book, sequel, Chemo Kids 2, and we are excited to present it to all of our friends and families here. We're just going to go over some questions and have the author tell us a little bit about Chemo Kids 2. What inspired you to write Chemo Kids 2, and what made you feel like there was more to say about this book?
I kind of felt like Chemo Kids 1 was a good kind of like a good introductory into like my story, but I also felt like it wasn't as detailed enough. And I also wanted to give homage to the people that were kind of inspired by my journey. So I wanted it to be a little bit more detailed. I wanted it to kind of give homage to like my pediatrician and my oncologist and my life specialist and all of those little small like pieces of memory that I remember from being a childhood cancer survivor. So that's why I wanted to get into more detail about what the little journey about everything is, more insights into the team, who else is part of the team for childhood cancer survivors and kids. And so that way, if someone was reading this, they have a little bit more understanding about like who are all the key takers that are involved in the journey.
That is so vital because, when a child does, enter the hospital setting and the family, you just see so many people. You're frightened depending whatever age you are in general, even as an adult, and you want to really know and to like, what's happening around you, the environment, but also the individuals. How does this second book build or expands the story that started in Chemo Kids?
It kind of advances like more like the treatments and things across that line. Not necessarily the treatments, but like more individualized with the care team. So I put a lot of focus this time about the team and the family that I built when I was a survivor. Mm-hmm. People in the hospital that kind of help and like what they do and their role. So that kind of gives a little bit more of a familiarity for someone who is undergoing the process of like what each person does.
What was your writing process like for Chemo Kids 2? And what did you hope the illustrations would capture in this book?
For Chemo Kids 2, I wanted to kind of capture more of like what it's like being during treatment and a little bit more of afterwards. The writing process was kind of easy because I wanted to focus more, like I said, on the team members and everything. So that's how I started drafting it. I started it with different team members and everything. And then towards the end, I got it a little bit more personalized. I started bringing in pictures of like my father, my dog, my best friend, Scotty, who was one of the patients that I had. One of my friends that I had with me during childhood cancer. So I wanted to kind of bring that in to kind of make it a little bit more personal with my story. But the writing process I felt like was smoother than last time because it was kind of like building up. And so hopefully maybe if there's a Chemo Kids 3, you kind of see like what's going to be like for afterwards or after, the healing is over with.
Tell us a little bit about that. You're the character in the story. You mentioned your father as well.
Yeah, so I'm a character in the story.
And your friend Scotty, you mentioned.
Yes. And so in the story, you'll see like different people throughout the care team. And what I did when I submitted my picture to the illustrator, I sent her pictures of like my caretaker and of my pediatrician and of my life specialist, because these are the people that were involved in my story. Scotty is someone who's important to me. He was one of my friends who I met during my journey with Friends with Kids with Cancer, which is also a nonprofit in St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm from. And he was pivotal in my role because we and him were both diagnosed at the same time. So you'll see in there, like there's like a treat party, like not like a party, but there's like catering involved. And like I remember like going to these Christmas parties or like Easter parties and stuff that they would have with all these kids, and he was there. Unfortunately, he passed away of leukemia. His cancer relapsed when he was like 14 or 15, so he's no longer with us. But yeah, I wanted to kind of give homage to like my family. I made it a little bit more personal towards the end. So he's in some of the illustrations. So is my dad, so is my mom, and so is my brother, and also my dog is too. So I kind of made it a little bit more personal towards my journey, but especially towards the end of the book.
That was Scotty the same age as you, or yes?
Okay. Yeah, he's the same age as me. So I was diagnosed at 2. He was diagnosed at 3. And we both were kind of like the first recipients of Friends with Kids with Cancer. We had the same doctors, same life specialists and everything. And even during our life specialist trainings, like for those of y'all who don't know, life specialist is someone who's helped develop like your treatment and training plan for kids. So like for most kids who with chemotherapy, they may experience some like neuropathy, or they want to make sure your nerves are still growing. So like we used to do a lot of like playing with toys with our hands. And that way we're trying to make sure that, you know, the nerve endings in our hands and everything are working. So we used to play with all these little different syringes and all these little sound things as well. Because, you know, with undergoing chemotherapy, you may have a hearing loss. So we used to play with like maracas and things across that line. But yeah, I think it's important that when you're going through the process that you have like somebody with you. And I even notice like some survivors now that like they have someone who goes through the process with them. And I think that's really important. So it's so important to have community, to have that, to know that you have someone with you during that time.
It's such an isolating time. And it's like you're saying, it's always good to have people that are undergoing similar experiences as you, and that lets you kind of know that you are not undergoing it alone. And I think, you know, just with the families in general as well, parents, caregivers can talk to other caregivers and parents to just to help both along, along the process. So I think that's beautiful that that's shown in the book. Can you tell us about what collaboration and what was important for you to see in the illustrations this time around?
When I had my experience, I wanted someone to sit down and explain to me what was going on. And, you know, even if it wasn't adult terms, I wanted it to be something that was explained to me easier, even as a child. And so that was kind of like my big motivation for this book, was like, how do we make these medical terms and this process easier so that even if a child is going through it, or maybe their parent is going through it, that they would have at least have a little bit of understanding of what's going on. Because a lot of people don't talk about it, like, you know.
Right.
And then that was one of the like really good reviews that I got on my first book, Chemo Kids 1, was like, hey, you know, as a kid, they kind of like shove that stuff down your throat. They just say like, hey, you know, you're gonna have to get a port, you're gonna have to get this, you're gonna have to get that, and no one's really explaining to the child what's really going on. And so I wanted to kind of make this one more detailed into like the medical terminology, like what is an anesthesiologist, what is a life specialist, what is an oncologist, so that they understand like not every person that's coming into the room it may not be a doctor or something, but they're still part of the team that helps with everything, you know. And also bring it into like those moments with like, you know, towards the end where like everyone's sitting together at the table eating, because, you know, they have volunteers that come in. Like that was my story too, because they have the Munchie Monday program at Friends of Kids with Cancer. So like you would have volunteers that would come in, you get tired of eating hospital food. So, you know, they bring in like, you know, Chick-fil-A and all that kind of stuff. So I want to kind of get it like organically established that like have it detailed, but still like understand what's going on in the process of a child who's going to undergo cancer.
Guys, to see just all the types of individuals that are in the hospital setting, helping the child, helping the family. Like the volunteer part, I was a volunteer for a few years, a good amount of years at a children's hospital. And, you still feel like you're part of the medical team, right? Because those are the individuals the child's going to be there seeing constantly. And the child has so many friends within the hospital, and I think that makes the recuperation and healing process even better. It's good to know that, yeah, that's the person I'm going to get to see, and sometimes that even makes it a really awful experience, like going to the hospital, kind of like, it's going to be okay, I'm going to see this person today, and that's going to make it a little better or a little fun. It's also a good book to kind of see beforehand what you can expect, and you can see it visually and in a kid-friendly way, and it will make it less scary. So I think that's beautiful. One page that really stood out to me shows the child learning they may have hearing loss from chemotherapy. Why was it important to include this, especially as a survivor living with late effects?
I wanted to include it because it was something that kind of like shaped me and who I am, and part of my journey, because I've always had a hearing loss, and I knew it was always from like chemotherapy. And I remember having a conversation with my mother and my mom, and the oncologist was always telling her, like, especially in those early childhood years, like when I was in kindergarten, first grade, like make sure she gets her ears tested every year. Because I think back then, like in the 90s, it wasn't so, I guess they knew about it, but like I feel like now it's like a definite, like you're gonna have a hearing loss. But I think back then it was kind of like we really don't know. We know it causes ototoxicity, but we don't know if it's gonna be a hearing loss or not. And I wanted to bring that up because a lot of that, it happens to a lot of people who are cancer survivors. We do suffer from hearing loss and things like that. And I kind of brought it up too, along with the alopecia too, like you're going to lose your hair, so that those things are not foreign when someone reads it, and they're not sitting there looking like, oh, well, these things didn't happen. Like, no, like, unfortunately, that's part of the process. If you go through cancer, chemotherapy, and you're going to have late effects. You're going to have side effects of medication. Not saying that nothing's not risky and not fact, but just so that people are aware that, just because the journey of chemotherapy is gone and you stop taking the medication doesn't mean that you're not going to have to deal with something afterwards. So that's why I really brought that up, because I wanted people to be aware of what happens after you survive.
Everybody's journey is a little different, but that is something that should be always mentioned within treatment, and to caregivers and patients. Just knowing that there could be potential late effects in the future, and I think this is a great book to kind of start, bringing up the subject about it, right? And I think not a lot of children's books for childhood cancer mention that. So that's why it really caught my attention to that part. And I know we've talked in the past about late effects that you undergo, and I think this is a good open conversation for those children and families who are kind of, how can I developmentally appropriately tell these patients, little ones, about it? Why did you want kids to see how many people are there to support them?
Yes, I don't want them to feel like lonely in that sense. Like, I still remember, I don't necessarily remember my anesthesiologist, but I do have still in contact with my oncologist and my life specialist. But I want them to know, like, that, like, cancer and your diagnosis and the team that you have is like a holistic care, right? It's not just one person that takes care of the patient. Like, you have people that will ask you about putting them to sleep, and a life specialist who develops like your treatment plans and things across that line. So I think it's important to show like everybody that's involved, not just, just the oncologist.
Another page that really stood out to me was, explaining to the child about chemotherapy and hair loss to another child. So why did you choose to tell this part from a child's perspective and point of view? Very, very interesting page.
Yeah, so I wanted that to be in there because I think it's important for other children to relate and to understand what that person is going through. I know from my experience, not necessarily in grade school, but like as I got older, like you kind of get tired of like explaining like, oh yeah, I had cancer, I had this, I had that.
Yes.
And I think it's important to bring that in when it comes to children, especially young kids, because you're making friends and our kids are noticing that, oh, this person's different than me and this and that. And I think in those differences that they should be shared and there's still like love there when you're trying to like meet people and build friendships and build relationships. I think it's important to have that in there because that creates that dialogue of, not cancer being so taboo and not really talking about it. I think it should be something that's just shared between children. And so let them know like, hey, just because I have this, just because I'm different doesn't mean that I'm, that much different than you.
Yes, no, I thought I really loved that page. It's so beautiful. Just, I can imagine two little kids speaking to each other and really just supporting each other. I can visualize it, and I think the book illustrates that beautifully too. Why did you want to close the book with survivorship and long-term care?
Everyone should know that it just doesn't end after you have your appointments. Like you still have to go back. I know, especially for me, I had to go back and get lab work like every 6 months or so to make sure your cancer markers, your cancer tumor markers, your hemoglobin, like all that has to be done and all. So I think it's important to say like, hey, just because, hey, my treatment has ended doesn't mean I'm not going to have follow up or this is not going to follow me for the rest of my life. So it's important to say like, yeah, I'm healing and that main process is done, but there's still little things that need to be brought up too.
It doesn't mean that you can't keep going on with your life, right? There just might needs to be some checkup. So I think this is honestly the first book that I've seen for children that kind of explains that. So that is beautiful, well said, and pictured, illustrated there. There's a page that says, I love spending time with my family between treatments. Why was it important for you to highlight those small but meaningful moments?
I think that and they teach us this in nursing, like you don't just treat the patient, you treat the family. And it's important to bring that into it because like, I feel like a lot of nonprofits, they don't just help the patient, they help the family, whether it's like giving gift cards for dinner or, hey, we need a new washer and dryer or whatever, things across that line. Like you don't just help the child, you help the mom, you help the dad, you help the brother, and things across that line. And I think it's important to know that, like, especially in childhood cancer, you're not just affecting the child, you're affecting the whole family and everyone else that's involved with them. So it was important for me to highlight that because I don't think it would be inclusive enough if I just put me in the book and my family.
Can you think of an example in your life during treatment when that happened?
Yeah, like I remember like my first Christmas that I had, my parents weren't able to financially provide for everything. And so like that Christmas that I had under treatment, like they brought gifts for not just me, but for my brother as well.
Throughout the book, there's honesty about fear, bravery, and comfort. What helped you cope emotionally as a child going through treatment?
I know like having friends, I think was comforting. And also like being around my family was comforting as well. I did have like my blanket and like my teddy bear and things across that line. So I think it's important for those things to be having for kids too, especially to bring that into the hospital setting. It's comforting, trying to make your hospital bed or your room more like home and things like that line. That's also very comforting as well.
Yeah, no, it definitely, it's a moment where, if you feel comfortable, the whole process can go smoothly and hopefully get it done with. We're getting a little bit into advocacy and representation. So the book does a really good job showing the real parts of cancer journey, ports, bald heads, medical equipment, and there's so much more. Oh my gosh, there's so much more. But these are just some of the things that are kind of shown in the book. And the specialists that are in it. Why is representation so important in childhood cancer literature? This kind of goes back to similar questions we've talked about before, but it does an amazing job showing all that parts of the real world of childhood cancer.
I think it was important for me with the illustrations to kind of like, hey, even if it can't be put in words, like at least you can see it. and those types of things. So I always wanted to make sure, like, oh, okay, the anesthesiologist has to be in the operating room because they're
Yeah.
asleep, like, and like I sent her like specific like illustrations and specific like pictures that I had in my life, so that everything kind of like went and matched with the sequence of everything. So
Definitely. And we're going to show one page here and to show the audience really what we're talking about when we're talking about specifics. So here's what the words say, that a child life specialist helps with developing my skills and needs based off my medical treatment plan. So that's a beautiful photo there of the child life specialist sitting beside the child. And look how detailed that looks, everything on the page, from like showing the artwork that is like in there of the human body parts, and the child life specialist sitting down and next to the child at their level and explaining to them real life stuff. So I think it's just beautiful, and just like the details of the human body. Wow.
Yeah, what I love about that particular drawing is that I sent her a picture of me actually playing with blocks too.
Wow.
So it's almost like exactly of how it's just like how she illustrated it, with just like all the block playing, and like she put so much emphasis of me playing with my hands to make sure I'm not developing neuropathy or anything. So it was really important for me to see that. I love that picture.
I love it. That really stuck out. Just all the illustrations in this book are so real life stuff that does happen. The blocks, like you're mentioning,
like a news special, like a special, because
Yeah.
I was one of the first recipients. Because when my doctor first moved to St. Louis, I was one of his first like patients. And so in the news segment, like I'm sitting down, like playing with like all these little things with my hands. Like I'm playing with like water and syringes and like blocks and everything. And so like it was really important for me to incorporate that, because that's a real life example of everything that I went through. So
and the clock, the phone, the the blocks, even the window outside, everything is just things that that's how you would see it. So that's amazing. You've become such a strong voice for survivorship. When you did realize your own story could help others, and what motivates you to keep sharing and creating books for the next generation of survivors?
For me, it's just comforting to share my story. It's also kind of healing for me, because there's been so many years that I went past and I didn't even talk about my journey at all. I didn't, like, no one knew that I even had struggled with cancer or anything like that. But it's like healing for me to talk about it and to give back to it, and to like some books I've donated to some other kids who've had it as well. And I don't know, it's like I get like a warm, fuzzy feeling inside when they're like, oh, your books helped me. And then like, I have someone I donated to, and she said like, oh, she sleeps with the book at night because it reminds her of her sister.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh, like, it's like such a blessing to see that like my words and this book kind of helped other people heal as well, because like, there's so many people, they go through this and they don't have anyone to explain to them what's going on. How is this experience happening? What's alopecia? What's a hearing loss? What's this? What's that? They don't know because they don't really have anything. And so to bring it to life, I don't know, it's just so comforting and warming.
And really, Behold BeGold's about empowerment and empowering childhood cancer survivors undergoing the late effects of treatment. After beating childhood cancer, the spider late effects, we are able to conquer many things. So I think that feeling that you're feeling, it's really an empowerment feeling for you to kind of continue, like, look, there's purpose behind this. So let's do this book. Now let's do another book, because along the way you're helping others with this mission that you have. It keeps fueling you, that's what I've kind of been noticing a pattern in here. How has survivorship shaped the person you are today, your career, your passion, and the way you see the world, now that we're on the topic?
Yeah, so I think it's important to always bring advocacy into the cancer survivorship world, like just showing like visibility of like, hey, like I survived, you can too. And even if they don't survive, like just to bring like awareness and community into it as well. I think it's definitely helped shape my career, because I think it's funny. I had a gastro cancer and now I'm a gastro nurse or a endoscopy nurse. So
Wow.
I love the fact that I get to like help people with the same thing that almost, injured me. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to bring awareness. I think it's important to bring community and empowerment into survivorship and let them know like, hey, this is not the end.
Love all that. Preach it. It's incredible how you survive this life-threatening disease at such a young age. And I think people that do just become more knowledgeable and in ways wiser and more strong and resilient through it. And at such a young age, you kind of already, you set your life up for success because you've kind of already have undergone something so life-threatening. And now you see the life as like, hey, let me take this and let me do something with it, right? And you mentioned today you are a what? I'm sorry? A
I'm an
nurse?
endoscopy nurse, but most of my procedures that I do are gastrointestinal, which I have liver cancer. So I work with a lot of
See?
people who may have like a colon mass or a liver mass, so to see if it's spreading or not. So I love that. I love that the same thing that almost injured me, I get to give back to that type of community.
You're empathetic about it. I think that's something that really needs to be more within the healthcare field. For a child who picks up the book Chemo Kids 2 for the first time, what do you hope they understand or feel after reading it?
I hope they just have an understanding of what it's like being in a hospital, and an understanding of there's a care team for you and that you're not alone and that you always have someone to lean on. And if they're not undergoing it themselves, even if their parent or someone's going through it, they have a little bit of understanding that they're not alone.
And like you said, even if they're not undergoing it themselves, maybe it's the sibling who's reading the book, who's also young. Maybe if it's an adult who's older reading the book, it shows them like, hey, this is a good way to explain it to my child, to my nephew, to, my grandchild. This is a great book for really all ages. It helps really to explain everything from a child's perspective as well. Is there anything else you're creating or planning that you would like the audience to look forward to in the future? Is there going to be another book?
I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. I was thinking about doing maybe a Chemo Kids 3. I know like my cancer community online is like, oh, we want another one. We'll see what happens. If not the end of this year, probably next year.
Oh, well, we're definitely gonna be looking forward to it if it does happen, which we hope it does, because really, like you were mentioning along the way, it's been helping many individuals and little ones. Our last question, Ashley, to you. BeholdBeGold is about empowering childhood cancer survivors undergoing late effective treatment. And what message of strength or encouragement would you share with survivors who are watching and navigating their own survivorship journey?
I would say keep going, keep pressing, don't give up. Find yourself a community of other survivors who know what you're going through so that they understand what you're going through, so you can have a better connection. And it's truly never over. Like, it can be a isolating and debilitating journey, but it can also bring about so much love and community and awareness. So keep going.
That's beautifully said. And I think a lot of the survivors who will be watching this, and even community who have not been affected by childhood cancer, or nurses or doctors or anybody who's watching this, will feel some type of connection. And we are hoping, guys, that you check out this Chemo Kids 2 book, because it could be something that maybe can be donated to a children's hospital. Also, the holidays are coming, so we would like to this would be a great gift to give children in a hospital setting, maybe those siblings who are also struggling to kind of understand what's happening to my sibling. And what other populations would you say, Ashley, would this book would be great to donate to?
I think I got a lot of reviews from people whose parents have undergo it, or their grandparents are undergoing cancer treatment. So even the adult population, they want to give it to younger kids for them to understand what's going on. Not even in the hospital setting, but just like they have expos for like cancer survivors and different like communities and whatnot. I think that's another great book that can be shared. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, Ashley. Thank you so much for coming on. And I'm just kind of going through and seeing some pictures here, that we're not going to spoil it for people, but people can kind of get an idea of the illustrations that are here and why this book is so well written and drawn, and really child words as well, text that people can see. Children go through so much, including scans. Children get so scared when they're undergoing scans and new procedures. This book does a very excellent job of showing the individuals, like we've been emphasizing, who are going to be in that room, the machines, the scary machines that are going to be shown, losing hair, and friendships that we meet along the way, like Ashley was telling us and sharing us about her friend. And yeah, guys, this is such a great book. Again, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but we really hope that you guys, community, our BeholdBeGold community, this is such a special book that we got because Ashley, again, is a childhood cancer survivor undergoing late effective treatment, the population that we serve. And how can we not support our friend Ashley on BeholdBeGold and just love and promote this book, because it's such a great book. I bought it, and it's just, from what we've talked about today, it has a lot of love by Ashley. And look at this last piece right here. Really warms my heart to see just the love, and really just tell us a little bit about the back of this book, Ashley.
Yeah, so I always try to leave the back of the book dedicated to all the pediatric cancer survivors, warriors, patients. Let this book give you clarity of everything that has gone through. Yeah, I really wrote this book for the perspective of myself, because I wanted something to explain to me what was going on with me when I was undergoing cancer. And then the person on the right is obviously my friend, Scotty, who passed with cancer. And then the person on the left is me. So, yeah.
Well, that leaves it to a great closing of just the supportive community of the childhood cancer community with Chemo Kids 2. If you have not gotten Chemo Kids 1, oh yeah, where can people, right, get the book and buy it and purchase?
Yeah, everything is available on Amazon.com.
Amazon, very good. And if you have Amazon Prime, you'll get it even quicker. Yeah. And if not, still, this would be a great holiday gift. And yes, we support Ashley here on BeholdBeGold. And thank you, Ashley, for your time and your explanation of everything. I think these books are great when we have the author go through these questions, and people really get to know you.
No, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you interviewing and talking with you. And it's good to see us warriors out there, connecting. This cancer community is one of the best communities to belong to.
For sure. No, and we, anytime anybody who wants to also share their gift of really anything like Ashley, this is a platform that we would love to have you here and share. And we really appreciate Ashley, and much success to Ashley with this book. And we hope you go purchase.